Hi yogis, Veronique here with a side plank tutorial. I'll show a supported side plank, some variations of side plank, some ways to play with side plank in a fun transition. So if this is a new shape to you, you are in the right place. If this is a shape that you've taken a million times, you're in the right place. We'll play with some variety and some exploration. You may want to have a block if you are looking to advance this shape. So when you're ready, come and join me on your mat. We'll start in a kneeling position. Come here, Barry. So you'll start in a kneeling position. Let's start with the right hand onto the ground, and then you'll extend the left leg out. So you're kneeling on the right leg and the left leg is extended. The sole of the left foot is completely on the ground. If this feels like a lot into your bottom wrist, you can always have your left hand on the ground and you can take this in a more supportive fashion. Alternatively, you could bring your left hand onto your hip. And then if that's going well, you can extend the left fingertips to the sky. So you're getting friendly with the shape in this supported side plank. Notice my right foot isn't right behind my knee. It's toggled out to the right, so it's sort of kickstanding and it's a little bit more supported. And you can gaze down for more stability. A couple things to think about in your supported side plank. So you can come out of it and just watch, or you can hold it if this feels like a stable shape. Notice if you tend to hyperextend into the bottom hand, you can have like a little bit of a micro bend and a wrap, and you're actively pressing down through every knuckle of your right hand. And then there's electricity coming out of that top hand as well. You can gaze to the top thumb if it feels stable. If it feels good on the neck, you could gaze to the horizon. And then if the balance feels like it's a little bit tricky, you can gaze down. So that's your supported side plank. So if that is feeling like a good place to practice, you can linger there for some time. If that feels very accessible in your body, I'll show you what Vashisthasana side plank is with the bottom knee lifted. So we'll start in the same way. Kneeling, so standing on the shins, and then we'll go to the left side. So the left hand is down. We'll start in a similar way, so extending the right leg out so you're in that supported side plank. Maybe you just flirt with the idea of getting lighter into the bottom leg. And then if that's going well, maybe you stagger your feet. So I brought the left foot behind the right, so my feet are staggered. If you regret that immediately, just set that bottom knee down. That's a perfect place to be, right? And then you can play with keeping the legs staggered. You can also stagger them more dramatically, kind of feel out where you want to be. You could also stagger the bottom leg forward. Alternatively, you could strive to stack the feet. So you might bring the right hand down initially. Maybe you stack the feet so the big toes are in line. The right fingertips can stay down, or the top fingertips. Maybe you bring the top hand to the hip. Notice where the hips are in space. See if you can kind of stack them up, and then we're cinching up through the bottom wrist. So I kind of think about rainbowing out through the body. And then if that's going well, extending the top fingertips to the sky. Same thing with the drishti, the gaze. You can gaze down, you can gaze to the horizon, you can gaze to the top thumb, and then you can release. So take a moment, you can roll out through the wrist. So I'll give some ways to play with this. So you probably have seen, or you've done yourself, some variations in your side plank. We'll play with some varieties and some explorations just to bring a little bit of creativity in this traditional shape. So starting in the same way, we'll go back to the right side, start in a kneeling position, bringing your right hand down and the left leg out. So as always, you can stay with the knee down. Maybe you stack your knees. Maybe this time, if it's going well, you can lift that top foot away from the bottom foot. Maybe you take a hold of the top knee with your left hand, and then once again, I'm lifting my hips up. Feel for activation into the bottom leg. You could gaze down to the horizon, to skyward. So play with it, get friendly with the balance. You can stay here. Maybe you tree pose your legs, bringing the sole of the left foot to the inner right thigh. In this variation, I like to drop the top arm over the head, and it feels like a really nice side body stretch. Sometimes I like to gaze down. Sometimes I like to gaze to the horizon. And sometimes I like to look up. So you can kind of feel out. There isn't one that's better than the other. It's just sort of where you want to be. And then we'll take this into a tree pose vinyasa. So option to play here, you can drape that top hand down, coming into tree pose plank. As you exhale, chaturanga with your tree pose. Then free your tree pose coming onto the tops of the feet, coming into your upward facing dog. And exhale, take it back, downward facing dog. And then lower onto your knees. So we'll find a little bit of play and creativity on the left side, a little bit something different. Certainly you can take the same variation side to side as well. So starting standing on your knees, you release the left hand down, extending the right leg out. Staying or stacking your feet. Staying or maybe hovering the right foot away from the left. We'll start similarly, so you can kind of lift the hips up. I'm actively driving my left palm through the ground, so I'm really getting nice and expansive across the heart and trying to maintain equal length into the side bodies, right? This will help keep more buoyancy in the shape. You can take a hold of the right knee with the right hand, or this time option to bring the right foot back behind you and then see if you can catch a hold of the right foot with the right hand coming into this bow pose variation or half bow pose. You can play with your drishti here. Maybe you challenge yourself, look up. And then a little fun transition here, right? So you can keep the hold of the right foot. Maybe we'll slowly begin to flip the dog. Try to keep the hold of the foot if you can as you set the right foot down, and then start to open up through the heart. So we're in this sort of wheel pose variation, lengthening through the front body. It requires a lot of shoulder mobility. And then slowly coming back out just as we arrived. Maybe you break up with the right foot for a little bit, reclaim it into your side plank. Let it go, maybe come into that star pose variation, and then come back into your plank, and then move through a vinyasa. Let's rinse that out. Inhale, and exhale, lower. Inhale, open up through the heart, and exhale, take it back, downward facing dog. Good, and then lower onto your knees. So, stopping anywhere along the way as always. Take a hold of your block if you want to play with this fun transition. We'll start on the left side as we'll be coming into a right side lunge. Have the block on the lowest height underneath your left palm. And I'm holding onto the block, the 3 center fingers in the center, and I'm gripping the outer edges of the block with my thumb and pinky finger. If you happen to have a slippery mat, I recommend having your block on a stable surface. You definitely want to make sure your block is stable before you come into this, so the block doesn't sort of run away from you, right? Find your steadiness, make sure that the block is even before you come into it, and then we'll come into your variety of your side plank. So you can play with this with the knee down, you can play with this with the knee lifted, and you can play with this in coming from one of the variations of side plank that we just discovered. So I'll play with this in this variation of the legs somewhat stacked. And then this time, floating the right leg as high up as it will go. Look to the top right corner of the mat. And then you'll draw the right knee into the chest. So a lot of things are going to happen simultaneously. See if you can come onto the ball of the left foot. So you're kind of in this one-legged cheetah pose-esque shape. And then you're slowly going to try to land the right foot to the top corner of the mat and come into this low runner's lunge. take a moment. We'll take a nice hamstring stretch here. So we're getting a little bit like off the roadmap in this tutorial series, right? Getting a little bit of an exploration of kind of deviating from just the shape and kind of playing with some fun transitions along the way. So lengthening through the right leg, get your hamstring a little bit of love. Shoo. And then we'll inhale, lengthen, exhale, rebend into the right leg, and then we'll journey back just as we arrive. So ground the left palm, lift the left knee off of the ground. This time come to the pinky toe side edges of both of your feet. Lift your hips up. Maybe extend the right fingertips to the sky, look down, and then see if you can ground down into the left leg, plug up, engage through the core. Perhaps you can float your right leg all the way up, coming back into that star variation. Looking down, we'll land back into our plank pose. Move the block out of the way. If you want a vinyasa, you can take it. Maybe your wrists are feeling fatigued. You could lower onto your forearms, rock your hips, make some circles into your wrists. And we'll take it to the other side. So I'll give a little bit of play here in this transition, just a little bit of variety. Certainly you can do the same thing each side. So if you are just kind of watching everything through, and then you can go back, play, pause, play within the shape, come back, replay, right? So finding your pathway into it. So we'll come to begin in that same kneeling position. It's almost like an Ustrasana camel pose prep shape. You'll bring your right palm onto the block. Once again, hug the outer edges of the block with your thumb and your pinky finger. Extend that left leg out. So you can do this with the knee down or the knee lifted. Just to bring accessibility, I'll demo it with the knee down, but you can also do this with the knee lifted. So you'll inhale, float the left foot off of the ground, bending into the knee. Catch a hold of the left foot with the left hand. And then begin to open up through the heart. Start to spiral the right side of the chest towards the sky. And then inhale, come back into more of that sort of bow-like variation of your side plank. And then start to draw the left knee into the chest. This time to keep a hold of the left foot. You might sort of adjust that bottom leg. And then this time see if you can. You can do this with the bottom knee lifted or down, right? See if you can hover the left foot right where you'll want to put it. And you're hovering it and you're bringing that left thigh into the belly. You could wing that left arm alongside of you. Maybe you extend the left arm towards the sky. Breathe into your strength. And then set the left foot down. Release your left hand down. And then we'll shift the hips back, giving the left hamstring some love as well. La 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 la. Good. Inhale, lengthening, and exhale to rebend. We'll journey back just as we arrive. So ground down, right palm into the block. You might toggle the right foot out, or you lift the back knee off of the ground. So I'll just show you what that looks like with the back knee lifted, but you can keep the back knee down. You're coming to the pinky toe side edge of the right foot, and you want the right foot in enough so that it can fully root. Ground down into the right palm, push the earth away, and then hover the left foot exactly, or somewhat exactly to where it was. And then we're coming back into that star variation of your Vashisthasana. Lift up, maybe look up. And exhale, release into your plank pose. Maybe a vinyasa, maybe cat-cows, maybe a child's pose. Release into some shape or shapes that connects you to your breath. Good. And then once you're complete, meeting in a comfortable seat. So that was a little bit of play into our side plank, showing some variations of bringing accessibility into the shape, some attention into alignment, and then also some play within the shape of finding different pathways to move in and out of it, and ways to perhaps come back into beginner's mind if it's a shape that you've been practicing for some time. I hope you enjoy. Feel free to share this video with anyone that you think would benefit from it. I have lots of videos in this library, as well as some classes in here as well. So feel free to explore, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Thank you for practicing. Love and light to each of you.